Hello and welcome to this episode of the Curiosity Key podcast, where I am joined with a marketing duo, Elaine and Elly Ball, where we're going to be talking about getting kids into surveying. So welcome, Elly and Elaine. Thank you so much for joining me.
Woohoo!
I love it. I've been looking forward to doing this episode for ages because I was just like, you know what, we're going to have a lot of fun and talk about lots of different things.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know. It actually turned out to be one of the most boring episodes on the
Yeah, really boring.
So, get kids into survey. Tell me a little bit about what is get kids into survey, or rather, I know a lot, but tell our listeners.
I know you do. Okay, so my background, I'll keep it really short, but my background is in manufacturing of laser survey equipment. Our dad is a hydrographer and mine surveyor, very entrepreneurial. We had a manufacturing plant and we sold that off, and I set up a marketing consultancy specializing in geospatial, so anything related to survey. Anyway, cut a long story short, it was at the Survey Association in the UK, and Rachel had phoned us up and said, would you like to put some marketing material, your stuff in the AGM packs for the surveyors? I think it was about 300 or something going to the AGM. I was like, Rachel, they won't read it. It's just more stuff that they're going to have to carry around or bin. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm working with an amazing cartoonist. I will do a poster for their children on survey kit. So between me and Elly, this was for November 2017. So we did a giant big A1 poster of an English countryside. We had a bull chasing two surveyors with a laser scanner, which got loads of laughs. We had a dinosaur in the pond, and we had chickens and sheep and backpack surveyor and all sorts, just showing different things in the countryside about surveying. Because the big problem is surveyors, they don't know how to come across their children or the school to say what exactly they do. And I thought something visual that me and Elly could go crazy on the marketing side with and go creative as anything. We could put that into them. And so that's how the initially started.
I love that. And it's now a fully fledged business.
Yeah.
You're getting sponsorships, you've got an AI tool, you've got a cartoon and all sorts of really, really cool stuff. So why is it important that you need to set up a business to help kids get interested in surveying?
Yeah, Elly, do you want to jump in?
I mean, obviously, there's the sort of lack of people coming into the industry. I think not just kids. Like, obviously, if you ask a group of kids, what's a surveyor do? What is a surveyor? They have no idea. But if you ask adults as well, they also don't know. General public don't seem to know anything much about surveying and surveyors and things like that. So, although obviously all our material is very much aimed at children, it's sort of awareness of the industry as a whole as well. But yeah, just getting that awareness of not just one sort of type of surveying either, like how many different areas it can go into as well. And obviously that's why we've got the different posters, different themes. And I think we're sort of almost reteaching the industry as well, like to the industry themselves, because some companies have come forward and been like, wow, I didn't know actually you could do survey jobs in this sort of area, in the film industry, for example, or gaming, or so it's actually opened up a lot of people's eyes, which has been really fun.
Brilliant.
But yeah, it's super important for just opening the eyes of the next generation coming in and sort of giving them the options and knowing what's out there, really.
So have you had a lot of surveying companies that are like, that sounds interesting. There's definitely a way to expand my business into this particular industry that they were not aware of before then?
I think they've just definitely been sort of like, wow, I didn't know about that. Or I think, I mean, obviously I don't know if they've actually changed or expanded their services, but it's definitely been something that has been a talking point, which is always a good starter, isn't it?
Definitely.
It was a bit of a method in my madness, though, because of the marketing consultancy side. I was always trying to, my target audience are resales, manufacturers and surveyors, very, very niche. And I was always trying to sort of how do you encourage them to be a bit more creative and, stand out of the box a little bit more, get awareness of what they're doing. And it was really difficult. And what the the cartoon, the posters have actually done is it's got them thinking in a creative way. So like MK Surveys, for example, you know, these guys, UK surveyors, and they've come up with this like sports car with a mobile mapper stuck on the back of it. I mean, it's just, they've just gone wild, you know, and they're getting, and the posts that they're putting on LinkedIn and sharing it, and the views that it gets. So it's doing what I love, because it's bringing out their marketing skills, but they don't really know. They're just doing it.
It has been great to see, because I remember when you first launched it, and a lot of the companies that were very traditional with their marketing styles and their approaches all of a sudden started getting excited about bears that had, you know, their brand on it with a name, and then you were just like, oh yeah, have you seen this bear, or have you seen this dragon, or have you seen this, like, you know, little character? And it was really cool to see people get excited about, you know, a different way of talking about their company and what it was that they were doing in a very non-promotional way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what it's been quite good, because it's sort of got two elements to it as the posters. The sponsors, of course, manufacturers love it because the target audience is surveyors, but then surveyors, like, you know, they work with each other and they do different jobs and stuff. So that's also good from a promotional standpoint, but also from a moral standpoint as well, and putting something back into the industry. Because everybody's talking about the baby boomers, they're all leaving and there's going to be no surveyors. And you speak to the guys at Newcastle Uni or in London and they're like, we've gone from 30 in a class down to 15. What does geospatial mean? Blah, blah, blah. You know what Ellie said. So it's actually really good, like what Ellie was on about, you know, the re-educating everybody. But the thing is, if you go around, and I mean, you know this, Charlie, if you go around an exhibition, I bet you there's 99% of the stands you don't know have a clue what they do, because it's so technical and so doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you what it does on the tin. Whereas, you know, so this from a marketing perspective has got me so excited, because they've gone crazy with it. We've got one guy, I'm going to get really crazy now, but we've got one guy, Diamondback Surveying in Las Vegas, and he's commissioned us to do cartoon characters for all his staff. Because he's like, this is just amazing. It's all about brand awareness. So
it's brilliant, because it's just a different way of storytelling, isn't it? That's a lot more accessible, and I don't know, I think there's an element of removing the overwhelm. If you can create characters and create a bit of a cartoon, it takes the overwhelm out of storytelling. Because I think a lot of people have said to me, it's just like, all right, okay, cool, you're saying I need to tell more stories, but where do I start? How do I even go about doing that? So it's brilliant to see so many companies go, you know, get on board with what it is that you're doing. And exactly what you were saying is just like, you know, tell a story in a really comical, fun way that, you know, has a serious outcome. Because, you know, if we haven't got any surveyors moving forward, then the industry is in real trouble.
Yeah.
But I know what you were saying about the geospatial industry. I mean, you're a lot more brave than I was. I think when I set up my consultancy, I was like, I'm not specializing in the geospatial industry. But then when I went out of the industry, nobody knew what the geospatial industry was. So I was like, oh, right, okay. But it gave me a great excuse to buy the latest iPad, because it has a LiDAR function on it. So every time somebody asks me about LiDAR, I'm like, well, check this out.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny when you said that, because I was giggling away, because Dad actually had drawn it out in like early 2000, the concept of a laser device in your mobile phone. So yeah, he was always way ahead with thinking. I mean, he had mobile mappers in the back of dump trucks and taxis. He says, so they'll just scan, because they're driving around all the time anyway, and they automatically scan and pick up the data.
Definitely. So what does your dad think about the Get Kids into Survey campaign, you know, being a real veteran of the industry?
Well, we take the mickey out of him the whole time, because he thinks it's great. He says really good and it's needed. But we've also turned him into a cartoon character. He's the last surveyor in the comic book. So, and he's got like a funny leg and a false eye, and he just cringes. And I'm like, he secretly loves it. Doesn't he, Ellie?
Yeah, he loves it. But also he's got in the comic book, he lives in this cave, and it's quite funny because actually the writer, he said, you know, we've got this character, the last surveyor. Do you want it to be based on anyone? And I was just like, oh no, just do, I just explained sort of a character that I was thinking of. And then he said, are you sure you don't want me to base it on anyone? And then, I don't know, just it came to me and I was just like, actually, we need to base it on our dad. And then And then he said, okay, what about, so do you want it to be your dad's name, whatever? So I was just like, dad's name's Steve. And he was like, that's really weird. I've already named him Steve, like before even knowing it was my dad. And then in the comic book, the last surveyor lives in this cave in the future. And it's really interesting because he's sort of, the writer sort of thought of all these ideas that are actually very reflective of my dad, like with his pantry full of baked beans and just little things like that. It's just so funny. Like, it's just nice to have all those little fun things going on in it. And I think dad loves it, really.
Is there any like sort of weird sort of Star Wars reference coming through here? It's like the last surveyor. Yeah, okay, cool. Like playing to my geekery. I'm like,
no, it's really funny you should say that, because Matt, who writes the comic and helps us with the content, and then Marek, they're both really geeky on all these cartoon characters and Star Wars and all that. So little things get put into the posters and stuff, and if you look at the mining poster, there is a reference to I shouldn't say Star Wars, but you'll see when you look into it, if you spy into the...
It'll probably be glaringly obvious. It's like you can instantly spot a fellow Star Wars fan because they start talking about all sorts of various different things.
Thing is, we get really crazy because like Marek started putting Spider-Man in and stuff. I says, no, you have to take him out because, when this gets popular, we could have Star Wars coming back to us and all these things saying you can't share that, or... dangerous royalty feed for Spider-Man.
Dangerous territory.
Dangerous territory.
So the other thing that I love about the Get Kids into Survey is that it creates a good conversation amongst people that aren't even involved yet, and it's kind of turned into something a lot bigger. Because I guess like when we first spoke about it, when it came to market, like did you ever imagine that it would be what it is today?
I don't know. It was really weird because when we went to the AGM with it, I mean, me and Ellie just were wetting ourselves because it's very reserved. The industry is a very reserved industry globally, and more so in the UK. And you'd have all the posters on the chairs and they were in the packs, but we had a couple on the sides and we were sneakily going up to them and sort of like taking them off the side to keep them, So this was all like interesting. And we produced so I asked some of the people I know and just said, I'm looking to raise a bit of cash to design and print this. Can you help me out? And one of the great guys who helped me out was Dave Bennett at TopCon. And I after that poster went out, and then we had Jacobs. He came up to, that was, what's he called, Ellie? Nick from Jacobs. Nick, and there was the other guy from Techniques. He came up to us and said, can I have a box? I want to give this to the local school. Perfect. So we did that, and then we came up with the Antarctica poster, and I spoke to Dave Bennett because they've done loads and loads in Antarctica with their kit. So, and it sort of went crazy, and there's two sort of things from that, because the Germans got hold of it and they wrote a massive big 3-page article in German publication. Well, it went crazy and we couldn't keep up with demand for the posters and emails, and they were all in German. I was like, and this was just a fun bit of, a bit of fun on the side of what we were doing. So we're like, oh my God. And then I remember having the conversation with Dave, and I said, Dave, what do I do with this? Do I make it into something? He's like, well, it's up to you. Because we were putting something back into the industry. It was a bit of fun that me and Ellie could go crazy with on our marketing skills and put it back. And then I ended up with this dilemma: is do I make it a commercial business? So it was like, am I going to profit off this? So you know what I mean? It was like what do I do with it? So we've got 2 routes. We've got an education arm, which is going to be charity focused. And then we've got the commercial arm. So yes, we are making money with it, but it's all about using our skills as marketeers in the industry to put it back in, and then also raise awareness, and then have this charity. And then our vision is to have a scholarship for especially underprivileged kids that they can then use this cash to learn.
Fantastic. I love that. So you said that you had this dilemma and you were talking to Dave and talking to various other people. Like, what can you explain that process? Because I can imagine we've got a few listeners that are thinking, right, okay, I've got this great idea. I might be in this dilemma as well. What was the big turning point? So what made you then go down that route and just say, right, okay, I'm going to have this charitable arm, I'm going to do this commercially and move this forward?
I don't know. I think
I think it was like a now or never kind of situation.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, wow, this is like just organically growing on its own. Like I'm not necessarily doing anything to help it push. It's just naturally going all around the world. So if it's doing that without us doing much to it, what's it going to do when we actually put work into it? And it was kind of like, that's when Elaine said, Ellie, let's, finish the contract that you're on and you work on it as sort of your full-time job kind of thing. And just see where we can go with it. And that's sort of, yeah. So that's how it's kind of gone forward, really, and we're still going for it. So,
I mean, like you'd post. I mean, we posted a little cartoon character of the new BLK, the little, the handheld scanner, and it had 14,000 views on LinkedIn. And then Ellie got hold of some little model SX10 scanners, little laser scanners, and we were like, well, what could we do with these? They're like little Lego kits that Trimble did. And one of the guys, I think it was Michael from Trimble, had posted something on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, I'm going to share that and I'll get Kids in Survey posts. And it had like 60,000 impressions. I was like, what? So all this stuff that started to happen. And we were like, you as a marketeer, you have a process, what works, but then you have these crazy things that happen and you're like, why did it do that? Why did it have a spike? Why did it get so much attention? And it's like with the German public, I mean, the poor Germans, if any Germans listening, I'm really sorry. We couldn't ship out half of them because we ran out of posters. So it's a bit of a phenomenon. I think, is it Jonah Berger from Pennsylvania University? What's the university
Wharton.
called, Ellie? Wharton University, yeah. He's got some really good marketing books actually, and he talks about, the phenomenons of things that are happening in marketing. So yeah, he from a scientific point of view, but it's still difficult to think about it.
Yeah. So what, in your experience, in terms of marketing, what's been the easiest way of getting technical people excited about marketing, other than creating cartoons and sort of fun posters for to demonstrate what it is that they're doing?
You have to give them little options. You have to give them tasters. What I found, so for example, when I've done workshops and I've gone and spent a day doing a workshop, and the main workshop criteria is literally strategy to implementation. So where are the survey company, or where is the reseller going? What do they want to do? And you can see some of them, they're glazing over. But when they sort of get the link, they understand when you give them the process, they're like, okay, I understand that. And then there's certain things that will, depending on the person, they will suddenly like lighten up, and you think, oh, that's interesting. So like having a specific spin on some tech, if they're a CAD tech, for example, anything to do with the characters, cartoons and stuff like that, you can get them really excited with. So that's a really good thing. Content creation, a lot of them don't know how to write groovy content and speak. So I say to them sometimes, if you're mad with somebody, write when you're mad, but don't post it straight away. Anne Hadley says that in her writing stuff. That's a good thing, because you're passionate, you come out with stuff what's really exciting. I mean, I'm like Marmite. I think they either love me or hate me to the industry, because I think sometimes I'm a bit overwhelming. So I have to sort of calm it down several notches when I go into workshops. And I usually, a lot of it is like you, I mean, Ellie's the same, we like the networking. So, you get somebody's attention, doesn't matter where they are in the business, and they have a network within their business. So they will network you into certain people who are like us. So then the excitement starts, and then they get really excited about what you're talking about or what you're doing. So
yeah, and about finding like-minded people that find the same things exciting as well.
Yeah,
definitely found that.
I think another thing as well is that Get Kids in Survey, what it's kind of proved as well, which we've always sort of talked about with marketing contracts and things previous, is having that technical person be like, okay, how do I do my marketing post, and they just put in all the features and all the technical garbage. And we were always explained, it needs to be in simple terms. And we've also always thought about, try and explain it to a kid like you would an 8-year-old, or try and explain it as you would to your granny. And then that's your marketing campaign. And it's kind of like, well, that's what we've obviously done through Get Kids a Survey, because obviously we've targeted towards like 8-year-olds. And it's quite funny because obviously we'll have companies that will come forward and be like, actually, I know this is for kids, or I know this is for, other people to understand the industry. But what I've actually been doing is I've been using it in our own business and teaching the staff in our own business what we actually do, because the staff in the office don't understand what the surveyors are doing out in the field. So it's just a perfect example, I think.
It's interesting that you say that, because the company that I worked for years ago, I tend to find something in everything that I can find exciting. And I came into the industry knowing absolutely nothing about laser scanning, about surveying. Like, I didn't know anything about that. A laser scanner to me was that thing that you saw in a club that made the club look kind of cool through the smoke. So then I was like, oh, right, okay, cool. You can measure things with this laser scanner. Let's just get find ways to find it interesting. And a lot of people in the office that didn't go to the trade shows, they weren't involved in sales or marketing or networking, they didn't truly understand what it was that we were selling. And it was always a bit of a challenge to get them excited about it. But I always like a challenge. So I was just like, right, how can we find ways to make them excited? Because I think if you can make them excited, it makes it a lot easier. Because also sometimes the decision maker in another company isn't always as excited about the technology as the person that's using it.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's good that you use the excuse that, we're targeting children with these posters, but here you have a load of marketing collateral that you can use in your own business. That's great.
It's true. Well, it's like Diamondback Surveying. I mean, he was on the Geoholics podcast. I don't know if you've heard that one. I think there was a panel talking about marketing and surveying. They're all, and he was just like, it's brand awareness. It's about brand awareness. And you can tell the surveyors that come forwards, majority of them get the brand awareness. So like quite a few companies will go for just logos. People will very rarely remember logos unless it's years and years and years and have done certain campaigns around it. Very difficult. When they go for a character, there's an emotion that's attached to the character. So if it's Bernard the Bear that Reigel's doing, or if it's Leica's Draco the Dragon, or, we've got some really crazy characters, but people will remember them because of the emotional connection. So it's tying that in. So from a brand perspective, I said to them, use it in your marketing, because it's something that people can relate to. And like when you do marketing courses, when you were starting off, I remember doing things like the brand onion and, what kind of character does your business represent? Do you remember all that?
Like the amount of marketing, like people, it was one of my biggest bugbears, especially when you recruit a team and, you've got all these newly qualified marketers coming out of university and they're all really excited for their job and, interviewing really well. But it's all of this theory. I mean, I work with, it was a marketing master's students, and I was really amazed. So when they presented the project to me, it cited research from 2005. And I'm like, hang on a minute, that was 15 years ago. Like, a lot of marketing is kind of pretty much out of date in 3 months anyway. So, it's that implementation that lacks. So no amount of theory can help you implement what it is that you're doing. And I think that's why I, especially my marketing consultancy, is all focused around curiosity. It's asking those questions about what do you find exciting and how can you relate that to what your clients find exciting? And also, like, how can you, like you just said, network into the people that you want to be speaking to?
Yeah. I find like what I have to watch sometimes, because sometimes, I mean, Ellie might be the same as well, and same with the other girls, but we can sometimes get into a bubble, into this like tunnel. And like, this is why we go to content marketing world or social media marketing world, because they are all like us. They're all a bit crazy and they're like marketeers, and you come back out of those conferences absolutely just screaming with the new excitement and stuff that you can do. And I follow Anne Hadley's what's the Anarchy, the newsletter that she has. It's one of the only ones that I open and read because I've met her several times. I've watched her at conferences. She's got such an addictive personality. and I've become emotionally like connected. And then you get her newsletter in, and it's like she's talking to you. She's written it to you, and she talks about this, write to one person, and it's great. So I like to sort of hope I inject that back in to if it's the Get Kids survey or if it's the marketing consultancy side.
It's such a good point that, again, I think a lot of companies sometimes forget is that, even though you're in a B2B environment where there's like loads of people involved in the buy-in process, you still generally do business with the people that you like. So if you go to a trade show or a conference or event, or if you see a speaker and you like that person, you're much more inclined to want to speak to them more, or like read what they're putting out there, or listen to their podcast and do other things like that. So it's that visibility piece to make sure that you are letting the people that shine in your company stand out and be visible. Because I think a lot of companies, especially in the geospatial sector, it's all about branding, it's all about the company, and not enough about the staff and the key members that are going to these trade shows, that are building those relationships, and making it more about them than it is about the company. So there's a lot of fear around that. So with the networking side of things, because I know that Get Kids Into Survey had a wonderful stand of their own at the last Geo Business event, which was fantastic. What trade show tips can you share? Because I know that there's a lot of companies out there, obviously not now, but at some point in the future, we'll be back to exhibiting at trade shows and doing things. So as we've discussed before, a lot of companies traditionally go to a trade show, put up their very technical banners, all about, the features of the product, because, with all technology, when you've developed it yourself, you're really passionate about it. So you want to tell people about the detail. What advice can you give to people around how to make their trade show booth stand out, and also how to get people coming talking to you? Because I know that you are very good at this.
Okay, Ellie.
I think obviously, it helps with Get Kids and Survey. We've got all the bright cartoon and the colours and things like that, so that's obviously going to be quite attractive. But generally speaking, obviously you want your graphics and your images and things like that to be very attractive and sort of appealing to people. You don't just want just plain old sort of boring. It's kind of like looking at websites now compared to websites like 10 years ago. It's kind of like you've got to stay current and keep it modern and fresh and engaging. And then also obviously with what you're writing on your sort of banners, because if you're just one person or two people on your stand, you might be talking to people, and then other people come to your stand, but they'll go away if they don't understand what your stand is all about. And obviously they can't talk to you because you're engaged with other people. So obviously, I've gone to different trade shows before, and I've asked people, okay, what do you actually do? Like, even though I knew what they did because I'd heard of them before, I was like, what do you actually do? And then they'd explain. I'd be like, why didn't you what you've just said to me just now in that quick little explanation, why isn't that on your banner, on your stand? You just need to, I always say to people as well, whether it's from writing content that goes out or, putting out a social media post on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever, write it as if someone's just, as if you're speaking to, obviously, like we just said, speaking to one person. Like, don't think about it as like, oh, I've got to be technically correct and I've got to be, sort of feature orientated or whatever. Like, speak as if you're just texting your friend, minus the, bad language. But yeah, like generally just people like people. So it's kind of like be as personable as you can, I think, as well. So it iterates towards, around everything that you do, from your stand at a trade show to content you put out to social media posts, everything. So.
But you were also very good at making people queue to talk to you at your stands. So, I think you're playing down your skills here. So I'm gonna try and like weasel it out here. Like Elaine's laughing because I remember sort of like being one of those idiots queuing to sort of talk to you. I was like, right, I just want to talk to you about this one thing, but you're there dishing out t-shirts and posters and things like that. So
I think as well, obviously, with what our stand was all about as well, we had lots of things going on. So obviously, we had the t-shirts, we had new things coming out, like obviously the comic book. We had some like AR, different things to show people, because like you were sort of saying before, people are sort of hooked on different aspects of what you're doing. So there might be someone that's a bit more techie, or there might be someone that's a bit more visual, there might be someone that's a bit more audio, all these different things. So sort of when you're speaking to one person, I suppose you've got something different to show them or different to engage with, and that could be also like getting involved in a bit of a raffle as well. So you've got lots of little things to turn, go back on as well. I think.
It's the psychological element as well, though, because Charlie, you didn't come to interview last year, did you? I can't remember. It was the one before.
No, I just had Ayrton. So.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't do that. Yeah. So, very good point. So last year, you saw us at Intergeo the year before, and I was on the Topodot stand. And last year, we had a bit of, the year you came, we had an issue with a pillar.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the organisers, bless them, didn't sort of tell us how large the pillar was. And it was, I think it was like 1.5 meters or something in like
it's huge.
Width. It was massive, stuck right in the sort of way. And lucky we had a big stand. However, I thought, right, how could we do something about this? So Ted, the president of Topodot, took a picture and posted it. And then I forwarded it on my LinkedIn and just sort of said, this pillar is like, and we were mad about it at first. It got so crazy, people had to come and see the pillar to see what we were talking about. So we'd taken a really bad situation and made it into a talking point. And so, but again, going back to that, weird stuff that happens in marketing, it sort of got out of control. So if you go back into the threads, I think we hashtagged it in the end or something stupid, but everybody's like, yeah, I heard about your pillar. I heard that you were really mad about it. And then last year we were at, again, Intergeo, and they offered us a nice stand in the corner. And I thought, this is going to either make or break us, because it was right in the main door. So as soon as you came in, it was on the right-hand side, but it was not near anybody. And it was in a dark position. And I was like, right, okay. So Ted is amazing because he lets me go a bit crazy. So again, this is one of the reasons why we got into the cartoons. We came up with Professor Topo, and he's this professor who talks about point clouds. And so he injects a bit of fun because software is really boring, especially to do with surveying. So we're like, how do we make it crazy? So we had all these cool graphics all over. And then literally point cloud processing software, feature extraction. That's what you want to do for road and rail corridors. Bam. And we had loads of lights, and we thought, right, let's see what happens. And the doors started opening, and we had queues. The rows were like 6 or 7 people back waiting to speak to us. And it was just like, I think we just hit the nail on the head. It was different. It was really bright. It told you exactly what it did. It was niche. And this is what I say to all my customers. You have to focus specifically on even just 1 or 2 things, but focus. I know you do several other things, but just focus your marketing on 1 or 2 things that you're really, really, really good at, and promote the heck out of that. The other stuff will come.
Because that's always one of my biggest bugbears, especially in the geospatial sector with software and scanning. It's like, laser scanners, like we have a laser scanner, LiDAR, this, and it's like, right, okay, so who are you targeting at? Like, is this a high-end, highly detailed laser scanner, or is this a short-range one, or is it a long-range one? Who are you actually targeting? And it's like, no, we just do laser scanners. And it's like, ooh, all right, but there's another stall down there that's saying that they do exactly the same thing. But then when you actually go and speak to them, it's like, hang on a minute, they're targeting a completely different sector of the market. Yeah. And like same with point cloud processing software. It's like, oh no, we do point cloud processing software. So do they, and they're opposite you. So like, what makes you different? And you have to actually go and speak to them. Yeah. But like the industry, is also full of quite introverted people that don't always want to go and speak to people. So
very introverted.
Yeah, it's great to see that, you've got a real clear example of being very specific and saying, right, okay, cool. Well, we do other things, but here's our biggest focus. Come and talk to us about that. So
Topodot was a classic because like, they were throwing tons and tons of money at like Google AdWords and advertising, really specific features that they did. Yes, we can measure all the white stripes in the road. Great, lovely. We can do buildings and we can do bridges. And I'm just like, wait, whoa, stop it all. Let's just sort it all out and specifically choose. So I said, right, road and rail corridors, that's what you do. Yes, point cloud processing, feature extraction, how many white lines, how many curbs, blah, blah, blah. Let's just market and focus on this. And then after sorting all the marketing out and then putting back into Google AdWords specifically, it started then growing. And then Ted was like, oh, it works. And I'm like, yes,
funny that.
It works. And he's like, but we do, because at the beginning he was like, but we do buildings. We do point clouds for buildings and paths. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but you must focus your marketing. You have to do it. It's so important.
And I love the fact that you turned it around with the pillar in turning a negative into a talking point. But I was gutted to miss Instio last year, because that would have been my 10th Instio. Like, I'd been to 9 of them consecutively. So like, even though I had technically left the industry a few years ago, I still went because I've still got a lot of contacts and clients in that space. And one of my first experience of Instio was also with a fire hydrant pole. And that because I'd never exhibited at such a level before, and I didn't notice it on the plan. So when I got there and I was setting up the booth and everything, and there was this great bit, it wasn't as big as the one that you had by any sense of the imagination. You like literally, got the unlucky stick that day.
I know.
And I was like, oh, I've got to drive a car onto this stand. Like, how on earth am I going to make this work with this great big, fire pole in the way? So it was a good learning point. Always study the floor plan of what it is. And if there's any circle that you don't expect to see there, make sure you explore it.
But also the thing is as well, is I have a good relationship with the Instio guys. So I phone them up. And also now with video marketing, that's also really, really good. Because I like to WhatsApp video or FaceTime or whatever. And that's really a really good thing. So, because people are like, oh, right. So then you get to know them personally. And I think that's a big key. So it's putting yourself out there, just do it.
So you are going to absolutely love a new feature that's coming to LinkedIn very soon, because I know that you're getting very excited about Instagram stories and IGTV at the minute. So LinkedIn will be introducing stories, a storytelling aspect of what it is that they're doing. They're launching it in Brazil and the Netherlands at the minute. So hopefully at the time that this actually is published, we will have access to LinkedIn stories, which I think, especially for events and trade shows, will be a really big game changer. I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I can imagine that you'll be all over that as well.
That'll be great. That'll be right on my street.
I love that. Also events as well, and using Twitter for that, because I remember I had two team members that got stuck in traffic, and it was at Geo Business, and I was on the stand on my own, absolutely desperate for a coffee. I hadn't been able to get a coffee that day at all. So I was like, hang on a minute, I've got all of this expensive equipment on the stand, I can't leave, and I really want a coffee. So I think I just said on Twitter, I was like, first person that can bring me a coffee will get, I think I was like, this special pack of biscuits.
I remember you doing that.
Yeah, I got 3 coffees in the space of about 10 minutes. It was great. I was high as a kite for the rest of that day.
Twitter is awesome though for shows. I used to use it a bit, but for shows, I mean, Ellie did the conference in the open space at Geo Business last year, and it was brilliant because I was just tweeting stuff out all the time, and they're like, people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I just seen your tweet. I had to come over." So good.
It works. Create a talking point. So for anybody listening and you're involved in events, networking, or anything like that, use Twitter, use LinkedIn, and create a talking point around what it is that you're doing, even if it's something catastrophic, like having, a 1.5 meter diameter fire pole in the way. But I remember seeing that, and I remember looking at it going, oh, you've made a really good job of this situation.
I know. God, everyone was coming. And also, what was funny, how they do the parties in the evening? It was a talking point at the party. They were like, "Yeah, you're the guys with the pole." It's like, what? The pillar. Oh dear.
I love that. But it's always good fun to attend, because I did that on LinkedIn a while ago, and it was interesting what you were saying about like talking about things that make you mad, because my most viral, I hate that word, but my most viral LinkedIn post, it was just before I had Ayrton, and I had to run it past my partner at the time, and I was like, right, is this pregnant, nearly ready to give birth Charlie speaking here, getting mad, or is this normal Charlie? And he was like, no, that's normal Charlie, you're okay to post it. And it was a post, it was all about women's exclusive award ceremonies, and I've got a bit of a beef about them, because I'm like, why would I enter an award based on a small percentage of, I don't want to win Entrepreneur of the Year if I'm only up against women. I want to be up against everybody.
I'm the same. Yeah.
No. And I know that there are a lot of people that share my views, and I don't mind, if people disagree or whatever, but I got an email from our Chamber of Commerce that basically it was all pink. and it was all like sort of women in pretty dresses, like, you know, talking and clinking champagne. It was all very twee. And I was just like, oh, it enraged me. So I created this LinkedIn post basically saying, look, like, does anybody else get really annoyed by this? And it reached nearly 1 million people. And I was like, I'm completely blown away by what it went on.
Yeah.
I think because I found it so, it really hit a nerve when I received that email, and I thought, right, okay, I can talk about this, you know, slightly different, but in the same way that, you know, you go to your stand and you see this massive like eyesore, you're like, it hits a nerve and it makes you angry. Talk about it in a constructive way. You can get a lot of traction from doing it that way too.
Yeah, I remember that post was going for ages, like weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was still there. I was like, sort of like in labour looking at my thing, like, I need these distractions. Talk to me about anything that's not related to having a baby right now.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's good fun. So I realise that we've been nattering away for a while. So what is what's new with Get Kids into Survey, and also like what are we looking forward to? What's coming up soon?
So obviously, you know, the posters are still going. We've got this year, we've come out with the utilities posters. The next one's going to be transport. We've also got environment this year as well. And then obviously with the comic book, so that's been sort of coming out as a monthly episode in CES magazine in the UK and POB in the US. But obviously we're gearing up to sort of making a full comic book. So that's obviously still in the works, which is really exciting. And then alongside that comic book, we also want to release lesson plans that are, you know, in line with the curriculum for primary schools. And that's obviously a really important thing that we're sort of looking at more this year. Obviously up until this point, it's been very focused on sort of our target audience being surveyors. That's the surveyors then take it to schools or their own kids, or, you know, do careers fairs and that kind of thing. Whereas now, you know, how do we go direct to schools or directly through organizations that go to schools and things like that. So our writer that does our comic book, he is also a primary school teacher and he also writes curriculum. So he's, you know, working on sort of lesson plans for the posters, lesson plans for the comic book. And also what's really important is, obviously, you know, we don't just want it to be a lesson plan on surveying, that kind of thing. It's stuff that's really appropriate to primary school kids, and it ticks all the boxes for the teachers. So it's, you know, covers English, math, that kind of thing. But is talking about a story to do with surveying. The most recent one that we're going to be releasing soon is actually a project on the Loch Ness. And Matt, obviously, he's still teaching key worker kids at the moment. And he trialed this like last week or 2 weeks ago. And did a project on the Loch Ness, and it was all about, you know, read about the Loch Ness, the stories, all that sort of thing. And then it was going into where is Loch Ness actually located. So use Google Maps, orientate yourself, you know, learning all about sort of the geography side of things. And then how did they find out if Loch Ness, you know, if the Loch Ness monster was real or not. So they, you know, learned about sonar and how to sort of, you know, measure the depth of the water and what's underneath it, and then other things as well. So it's really interesting. You know, we were talking about how, you know, when you're talking person to person with marketing, it's the same with obviously kids as well. It's like, how do you relate to them on their level, and then you hook them in with actually education sort of thing. So it's kind of like hook them in with Loch Ness monster, this mysterious creature, but then also then go to the investigation side, where you then teach them about surveying equipment and technologies, and then careers, and then it, you know, develops further. So so it's really exciting actually working on those different sort of projects, I suppose. So that's sort of the big thing that we're doing this year.
Oh, fantastic. And will you have any more is it Professor Ginger?
Yeah, GeoGinger.
GeoGinger.
Yeah, what, as in the AI? Yeah, so obviously we started that like a year ago, sort of trialing it out and seeing how that would look, and we absolutely loved it, but it has been put on pause. But yeah, once we sort of get the ball rolling again, and obviously after sort of COVID and things like that, when we start to sort of come back to a little bit more of normality of going out to events and things like that, it will be in the future plans probably for next year or something like that.
Yeah, there's so much
amazing vision of like GeoGinger diving into Loch Ness, trying to find Nessie and sort of doing all these things. How cool would that be?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting actually, tapping onto that, because when we spoke, because we've been marketing it from industry to education and not from education to industry, it was like, how do we like then we tap into the kids. How do we? So we've been we met up with the Geospatial Commission in January, who then they've sent out a load of homeschooling resources, which has been really good for us, including of course all the Get Kids survey stuff. And then they put us in touch with the Geography Association. So hopefully we're going to do lots of cool things with those guys. And they look after all the teachers, all the geography teachers throughout the UK. So it's all like how we tap into it and keep it simple. And Matt touched on it perfectly. And again, this relates back to marketing generally. He says, don't overcomplicate it, Elaine. You don't need to teach a kid about GPS or a total station or, some piece of laser survey kit. You taught them about Loch Ness Monster and how did they find it. So he used the exploration poster from the offshore poster that we have. What tools would you use to find the Loch Ness Monster? Oh, sonar. Oh, okay. And what about, other things? So there's all these tools that they could pick out. And then indirectly what that's doing is the kid might not necessarily know what survey is, but they'll say, oh, that guy there standing beside the road, he's got a total station or he's a surveyor. But also, so it's educating generally the wider audience. And it's this morning I've just been sitting and listening to the Geosciences webinar, and they were talking about it. How do we educate the general public? This is how we educate the general public through, it's association or word and picture association. But what it actually means, it's that process from the Loch Ness Monster to using surveyors to survey Loch Ness. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant because also it's like you can be so overwhelmed with the amount of technology that's available for any particular application or any particular industry, and especially like relating it back to marketing. A lot of people come to me, it's just like, I'm so overwhelmed with the options available. I don't know which piece of software or which tool or whatever to use to help me achieve my goal. But because like very few companies seem to talk about the goals that they're working towards, it just makes it really hard for the business or the consumer to say, right, okay, well, actually, this is the thing that I need now, or I want to sort of prioritize my time looking at that. So yeah, that's that'd be really cool to sort of like say, oh, right, what am I going to use here? Am I going to use sonar? And because one of my earlier guests came on to talk about VIDAR technology, but because I spent 6 years working in like using LiDAR technology, I was like, oh, it's a spelling mistake. It's like they're talking about LiDAR, not VIDAR. And I was like, hang on a minute, actually, no, it is a thing. So that uses a completely different type of technology for search and rescue. So it can sort of identify small, tiny objects from the air. It's very cool.
Is it video based then? VIDAR? Is it video based or photogrammetry stuff?
Yes. So you use it with radar on a helicopter for search and rescue and all sorts of things. So worth checking out that interview. It's an earlier episode.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that one.
So yes, with Richard Glyn Jones. So for any of our listeners that want to learn more about VIDAR instead of LiDAR, check out that earlier episode. It's like, so that's brilliant. So where, for anybody listening thinking, oh, I really want to find out more about Get Kids into Survey and understand a little bit more about the industry, where do they go to find out more?
Well, obviously our website, which is very simply getkidsintosurvey.com. So obviously all the sort of information from obviously surveyors and sort of looking at how they can get involved with us, because, they can sponsor our material from the posters to the comic book, but they can also be brand ambassadors. So like one of the key things is that we want, people all over the world spreading this. It's not, it's not just about us getting out there. It's about building the community and building everyone, sort of helping each other out. So we've got, ambassadors in the States and Australia, we've got South Africa, we're covering, many areas now. So it's sort of like, how can you get involved without having to, put your money anywhere? You can sort of just go out into schools and spread the word and spread the material. And then obviously we've got the whole resources page for kids, for teachers, which has all the sort of posters, colouring sheets, comic book. And then we just keep sort of populating that as well. So yeah, that's the main thing. And then obviously we're on the social media channels as well.
Brilliant. And what's your sort of favourite social media platform of choice at the moment? I know Elaine's all over Instagram at the moment, but how about you, Elly?
I think for more sort of talking directly to, I suppose, the industry, definitely LinkedIn. But yeah, Instagram is probably my favourite for sort of just being a bit more sort of informal and a bit more fun and free. And yeah, it's good fun.
Brilliant. So anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up this interview, or anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think we've covered most of it, haven't we?
I think one of the things that's just why we're talking about Instagram is I launched Instagram TV for our industry. I've got like, what am I doing daily? And I just given a blurb on what I'm up to. And then yesterday we launched the, literally it's called geospatial chats, and just chatting with other surveyors. And we had river surveyors on yesterday, and it was hilarious. Some of the stuff that they come out with, river surveyors falling in rivers and, you know, all sorts of stuff. But what is really important about it is we just did it. So last week, me and Hannah were just having our marketing update. And I said, come on, let's jump onto Instagram TV now live. Let's just do it. And it's feel the fear and do it anyway. It's that, you know, jump right in there. Don't be scared. Just try it. And I just did. And we're getting between 100 and 150 views at the moment. And I've only got a small amount of people. I've got about 600 people on my Instagram account. And I thought, well, you know, it was just sharing pictures. But I thought, no, actually, this is a really good platform for me to be informal, whereas LinkedIn is a bit more corporate. And I thought, let's just go for it. But I definitely put that out there to anybody who's wanting to do something. Just do it. Just try it. And, you know, it's exhilarating. Yeah, even Mike said it on the call yesterday. He says, I can't hide behind this, can I? Because it's live. So yeah.
It's a really good way to learn, isn't it? If you can just put yourself out there and do something live, and then just like remove all of the fear of messing up or it going wrong or anything like that as well. It'll just help you so much when you're doing everything else. And that's not saying that you need to kind of like reduce your standards or anything like that, but it's just like, just remove those barriers to entry, I guess.
Yeah. People want to speak to people. They want to see what you're like as a person, not this corporate face. It's like, you know, when people say to me about their marketing, their look, what their marketing looks like. And I'm like, yeah, but that looks really corporate and boring, whereas this looks really, and it doesn't have to be cartoony. It just needs to be a bit more about their personality and their leadership and how their culture is in their business. So, yeah.
Well, that's always worked well for me in every role that I've had. If you can elevate your team and the staff that's working with you and the people that are kind of going face to face with the clients, tell their story, showcase them, lift them up, because that's really what people want to know and what people want to see, isn't it? Not, you know, the corporate stuff that nobody's really interested in.
Yeah, correct.
Brilliant. Well, it's been absolutely lovely having you on this podcast after all this time. I know I've been bugging you for ages, going, please come on my podcast.
No, it's been brilliant. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
So thank you. I will include all of the references and links and everything like that in the show notes. So for anybody interested, just head over to charliewhyman.com/podcast. And thank you, Elaine and Elly. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.